Keanu Reeves had always been a simple man, even after becoming one of Earth's most famous actors. Now, at the age of 73, he lived quietly on the planet Aquaterra Prime, far from the noise and chaos of his old life. His house sat on a cliff overlooking the endless blue ocean, and his favorite spot was the infinity pool that seemed to flow right into the sea. Every morning, Keanu would wake up before sunrise and swim 50 laps in his pool. The water was always perfect, crystal clear, perfectly warm, and treated with the best filters money could buy. It was his peace, his sanctuary, his reward for decades of hard work. But 3 weeks ago, something changed. The first sign was small. Keanu noticed that his pool seemed to need more chemicals than usual. The cleaning system, which normally worked for months without problems, suddenly required attention every few days. The water levels dropped faster than they should have, even accounting for evaporation. "Chip," Keanu said to his house computer one morning as he stood by the pool, coffee in hand. "Run a diagnostic on the pool systems." The artificial intelligence responded in its calm, measured voice. "All systems are functioning within normal parameters, Keanu. However, chemical consumption has increased by 47% over the past 3 weeks. Keanu frowned. "Any explanation for that?" "Negative. All filtration and treatment systems are operating correctly." That evening, Keanu decided to watch the pool from his bedroom window. He dimmed all the lights and settled into his chair with a cup of tea. The pool glowed softly with underwater lights, creating ripples of blue light on the walls of his room. At first, nothing happened. The water was still and perfect. But around midnight, Keanu saw something that made him sit up straight. The water began to move in strange patterns, as if something large was swimming just below the surface. Ripples spread across the pool in perfect circles, but there was nothing visible causing them. Keanu grabbed his tablet and activated the pool's security cameras. The high-definition cameras showed the water clearly, but there was nothing there. No fish, no debris, no explanation for the strange movement. "That's impossible," Keanu muttered. The next morning, he called Jake Murphy, the local sheriff. Jake was a good man who had helped Keanu with minor problems before, mostly dealing with tourists who tried to sneak onto his property for photos. "Jake, I need you to come take a look at something," Keanu said over the phone. "What's the problem, Keanu?" "Someone's been using my pool at night, but I can't see them on the cameras." There was a pause. "You sure you're not just seeing things?" "Sometimes the water moves on its own, especially with the ocean winds." "I know what wind looks like, Jake. This is different." Jake sighed. "All right, I'll come by this afternoon." When Jake arrived with his deputy, Lisa Carter, they both looked skeptical. Jake was a big man with gray hair and kind eyes, while Lisa was young and eager, fresh out of the police academy. "Show us what you're talking about," Lisa said, pulling out her notebook. Keanu led them to the pool area. In the bright afternoon sun, everything looked normal. The water was still and clear, the deck was clean, and there were no signs of any intruders. "The cameras don't show anything," Keanu explained, showing them the footage on his tablet. "But watch the water movement." Jake and Lisa watched the video, but their expressions remained doubtful. "Keanu, I've known you for 5 years," Jake said gently. "You're not the type to imagine things, but this just looks like normal water movement to me." "Maybe it's the pool's circulation system," Lisa suggested. "Sometimes they create currents that look weird." Keanu shook his head. "I've had this pool for 3 years. I know how it's supposed to look." After the police left, Keanu felt frustrated but not defeated. He decided to investigate on his own. That night, he set up additional cameras around the pool area and positioned himself in the garden with night vision binoculars. The hours passed slowly. Keanu began to wonder if maybe Jake was right. Maybe he was seeing things that weren't there. Maybe living alone for so long was affecting his mind. Then, at exactly 2:17 a.m., it happened again. The water began to move in those same strange patterns, but this time Keanu was ready. He focused his binoculars on the pool and adjusted the settings. For maximum clarity, what he saw made his blood run cold. There were shapes in the water, translucent, ghostly shapes that seemed to phase in and out of visibility. They looked like jellyfish, but much larger, about the size of dolphins. They moved gracefully through the water, their bodies pulsing with a faint bioluminescent glow. Keanu counted at least 6 of them. They swam in coordinated patterns as if they were dancing or playing some kind of game. One of them, larger than the others, seemed to be leading the group. "What the hell are you?" Keanu whispered. As if responding to his voice, the large creature turned toward him. Even from a distance, Keanu could see what looked like eyes, large, intelligent eyes that seemed to study him with curiosity. The creature made a sound, a low melodic tone that seemed to vibrate through the water and into the air. The other creatures responded with similar sounds, creating an otherworldly harmony. Then, as suddenly as they had appeared, they were gone. The water returned to its normal stillness, leaving Keanu wondering if he had really seen anything at all. But the next morning there was proof. The pool's chemical levels were completely out of balance, and there were strange marks on the pool's bottom, circular patterns that looked almost like writing. Keanu took photos of everything and called Jake again. "Jake, I need you to come back. And this time bring someone who knows about marine biology. Keanu, we talked about this. Just trust me, Jake. Something is living in my pool, and it's not from around here." When Jake arrived the next day, he brought Dr. Alex Stone, a marine biologist from the local university. Alex was a thin man with wild hair and thick glasses who got excited about anything related to ocean life. "Fascinating," Alex said, studying the photos on Keanu's tablet. "These patterns are definitely not natural. They're too organized, too purposeful." "So I'm not crazy?" Keanu asked. "No, you're not crazy," Alex replied. "But whatever made these marks, it's unlike anything I've ever seen before." That night, all 3 men waited by the pool. They had set up professional recording equipment and were prepared to document whatever appeared. They didn't have to wait long. At 2:15 a.m., the creatures returned. This time, there were more of them, at least a dozen. And this time they seemed bolder, spending more time near the surface where they could be clearly seen. "Dear God," Jake whispered. "What are those things?" "I don't know," Alex replied, his voice shaking with excitement. "But they're definitely intelligent. Look at how they move together." The largest creature approached the edge of the pool closest to where the men were standing. It rose partially out of the water, revealing a body that was both beautiful and alien. Its skin was translucent, showing internal organs that glowed with soft light. Its eyes were large and dark, filled with an intelligence that was unmistakably real. The creature opened what might have been its mouth and spoke in a series of musical tones. The sound was hauntingly beautiful, like a whale song mixed with a human choir. "It's trying to communicate," Alex said in wonder. Keanu stepped forward slowly. "Hello," he said simply. The creature tilted its head and responded with a different sequence of tones. Then it sank back into the water and rejoined its companions. For the next hour, the men watched as the creatures played in the pool, their bodies creating light shows that were more beautiful than any human art. They seemed to be enjoying themselves, completely unaware of the chaos they were causing in Keanu's life. When dawn approached, the creatures began to fade away, becoming more and more transparent until they disappeared entirely. "Where do they go?" Jake asked. "I don't think they go anywhere," Alex replied thoughtfully. "I think they're still here. They're just somewhere else." Keanu looked at his pool, which now appeared completely normal in the morning light. But he knew that his quiet life on Aquaterra Prime was about to become much more complicated. The next few days changed everything for Keanu. Word spread quickly through the small community on Aquaterra Prime that something strange was happening at the famous actor's house. Dr. Alex Stone couldn't keep quiet about what he had seen, and soon reporters from 3 different planets were calling Keanu's house. No comment, Keanu told them all. But it was too late. The story was out. The creatures, meanwhile, seemed to think that Keanu's attempt at communication was some kind of invitation. They began showing up earlier each night, staying longer and bringing more friends with them. On the 4th night after first contact, Keanu counted 23 of the translucent beings in his pool. They had organized themselves into what looked like a party. Some swam in synchronized patterns while others floated near the surface, their bodies pulsing with different colors of light. Chip, Keanu said as he watched from his bedroom window. Record everything. We need to understand what they're doing. Recording, Keanu. I'm also detecting complex sound patterns underwater. The creatures appear to be communicating through sonic frequencies. Can you translate any of it? I'm building a database of their vocalizations. Give me more time. The largest creature, the one Keanu had first seen, positioned itself at the center of the group. It began making a series of elaborate sounds, and the others responded in harmony. Their bodies grew brighter, creating a light show that could be seen from space. Betty Collins, Keanu's nearest neighbor, called him at 3 a.m. Keanu, what in the world is going on over there? She demanded. Frank and I can't sleep with all that noise and light. I'm sorry, Betty. I'm trying to figure it out myself. We'll figure it out faster. We've got guests coming tomorrow, and they're going to think we live next to some kind of alien disco. That made Keanu pause. Alien disco wasn't a bad description of what was happening in his pool. The next morning, Keanu decided to try a more direct approach. He set up a comfortable chair by the pool and waited for the creatures to arrive. He also prepared what he hoped would be appropriate gifts: various pool toys, some floating lights, and a waterproof speaker playing soft music. When the creatures appeared that night, they seemed surprised to find Keanu sitting calmly by the pool. The large one approached the edge of the water closest to him. Hello, Keanu said again. My name is Keanu. This is my pool. The creature responded with a complex series of tones. Then it did something unexpected. It projected an image into the water. The pool's surface became like a screen, showing pictures of what looked like an underwater city. Chip, are you getting this? Yes, Keanu. The creature is using bioluminescent projection. Fascinating technology. The images changed, showing the creature swimming through vast oceans, then through space, then arriving at various planets with water. Finally, the images showed Earth's entertainment archives, movies, TV shows, and music videos. Many of them featured swimming pools. They've been watching our movies, Keanu realized. The creature nodded, as if it understood. Then it projected more images, scenes from Keanu's own films, focusing on any scene that involved water. The creature seemed particularly interested in a movie where Keanu had played a character who owned a beautiful swimming pool. You think this is like the movies, Keanu said slowly. You think my pool is some kind of public place. The creature made more sounds, and suddenly all the other creatures began swimming in formation. They were recreating scenes from human pool parties they had seen in movies and TV shows. Some were doing synchronized swimming routines, others were playing what looked like water volleyball with balls of light. They're trying to have a pool party, Keanu said, amazed. They think this is how humans use pools. But the creatures had gotten their information from entertainment media, which meant they had some very wrong ideas about pool etiquette. They were making noise levels that would wake the dead. Their light shows were bright enough to be seen from orbit, and they were inviting more creatures every night. Keanu tried to explain that this was a private pool, but the creatures didn't understand the concept of privacy. In their culture, water belonged to everyone. The large creature, who seemed to be their leader, made sounds that Chip translated as something like "Waterkeeper Keanu, generous host." They think you're hosting these parties for them, Chip explained. They believe you invited them by saying, "Hello? Can you tell them this is a misunderstanding? I'm still learning their language, but I'll try." Chip played a series of tones through the underwater speakers. The creatures listened carefully. Then the leader responded with what sounded like grateful songs. But instead of leaving, more creatures arrived. What did they say? Keanu asked. I think they thanked you for the bigger invitation, Chip replied. My translation skills need work. By the end of the week, Keanu's pool was hosting nightly gatherings of over 50 creatures. They had developed a complex social structure, with different groups taking turns performing elaborate displays. Some nights featured what looked like competitive swimming. Other nights were more like underwater concerts. The noise complaints from neighbors were piling up. Jake Murphy had to hire extra deputies just to deal with the traffic jams caused by curious tourists trying to see the alien pool parties. The Planetary Tourism Board was both thrilled and terrified. This was the kind of publicity that could make or break Aquaterra Prime's reputation. Dr. Alex Stone had set up a research station in Keanu's guest house and was documenting everything. He had discovered that the creatures could phase in and out of normal spacetime, which explained how they appeared and disappeared so suddenly. "They're not actually from another planet," Alex explained to Keanu over breakfast. "They're from another dimension that overlaps with ours wherever there's water. They can access any body of water from their dimension, but they need to fully materialize to interact with our world. So they could show up in any pool on the planet?" "Theoretically, yes, but they seem to prefer yours. I think it's because you're the first human who tried to communicate with them." That afternoon, Keanu received a visit from Helen Cross, a representative from the Galactic Tourism Council. She was a stern woman in an expensive suit who looked like she hadn't smiled in years. "Mr. Reeves, we need to discuss the situation at your property," she said without preamble. "What situation exactly?" "The situation where unregistered alien life forms are conducting unauthorized gatherings on a private residence, creating noise pollution, light pollution, and traffic hazards, all without proper permits or safety protocols." Keanu stared at her. "They're just swimming in my pool. They're creating an interplanetary incident. Do you have any idea how many different species have filed complaints about the noise? The Centauri delegation had to move their embassy to the other side of the planet. I didn't invite them. Nevertheless, they're here because of you. The Galactic Union considers you responsible for their actions." That night, Keanu tried a different approach. When the creatures arrived, he was waiting with a stern expression. "Listen," he said firmly to the leader. "This has to stop. You're causing problems for everyone." The creature listened to Chip's translation, then responded with sounds that seemed confused and hurt. It projected new images, scenes of the creature's home dimension which appeared to be dying. Their water was becoming toxic, their cities were crumbling, and their people were desperate. "They're refugees," Keanu realized. "They're not partying. They're trying to find a new home." The leader made more sounds, and Chip translated. "Waterkeeper, Keanu, blessed savior, we stay forever." "They think you've agreed to let them live here permanently," Chip explained. Keanu looked at the dozens of creatures floating in his pool, their bodies glowing with hope and gratitude. They had traveled across dimensions to find safety, and they thought he was their salvation. "This," Keanu muttered, "is not what I signed up for when I moved to a quiet planet." But looking at their desperate faces, he couldn't bring himself to simply tell them to leave. These beings needed help, and somehow he had become their only hope. The question was, what was he going to do about it? As if sensing his thoughts, the leader approached the pool's edge and made a series of soft, pleading sounds. It was clear that the creature was asking for something. But what? "Chip, what is it saying?" "I believe it's asking for your permission to establish a permanent colony in your pool, Keanu. It's offering to make you their honorary leader in exchange for sanctuary." Keanu looked at his once peaceful pool, now filled with desperate alien refugees who thought he was their savior. His quiet retirement had just become infinitely more complicated. Keanu spent the next morning pacing around his house, drinking too much coffee and trying to figure out what to do. The creatures had stayed in his pool all night, something they had never done before. When he looked outside, he could see their faint outlines just below the surface, resting in what looked like organized groups. "Chip, how many are out there now?" "Current count is 73 individuals, Keanu. They appear to be in some form of dormant state. They're sleeping in my pool." "It would seem so." Dr. Alex Stone arrived before noon with 2 graduate students, Ryan Torres, a young man with thick glasses and nervous energy, and Amy Peterson, a red-haired woman who carried 3 different recording devices. "This is incredible, Keanu," Alex said excitedly. "They've established a full colony overnight. Look at this organization." The 3 scientists set up equipment around the pool area while Keanu watched. The sleeping creatures had arranged themselves in perfect circles, with the largest ones on the outside and smaller ones in the center. It looked like a military formation. "They're not just refugees," Amy observed, pointing at her readings. "They're organized like an advanced team. This could be preparation for a larger migration." How much larger? Keanu asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know. Ryan looked up from his tablet. Based on the energy signatures we're detecting, there could be thousands more waiting in their dimension. Thousands? Keanu felt his stomach drop. In my pool? Pools, Alex corrected. Amy's right about this being an advanced team. They're probably mapping out all the water sources on the planet. As if to prove his point, Jake Murphy called Keanu's phone. We've got a problem, Jake said without greeting. The creatures aren't just in your pool anymore. They showed up at the municipal swimming center last night, the hotel pools downtown, and even Mrs. Watson's backyard fountain. How many locations? 17 so far, and counting. Keanu closed his eyes. I'll be right there. He found Jake at the Aquaterra Prime Community Center, where about 30 creatures were swimming laps in the public pool. A crowd of onlookers had gathered behind safety barriers, taking pictures and videos. Some seemed excited, others looked worried. They're not causing any trouble, Jake explained. They're just swimming. But the pool staff doesn't know what to do. Are they allowed to ask aliens to leave? I don't think anyone's written laws about that yet. Deputy Lisa Carter approached them, looking frustrated. It gets worse. We just got reports from 2 other cities. These things are showing up everywhere. There's water. Keanu watched the creatures swimming. They moved with the same graceful coordination he had seen in his pool, but something was different. They seemed more purposeful, like they were studying the facilities. They're scouting, he realized. They're checking out all the available water sources. For what? To see which ones are suitable for permanent settlement. That afternoon, Keanu held an emergency meeting at his house. Jake, Lisa, Alex, Ryan, Amy, and even Helen Cross from the Galactic Tourism Council gathered in his living room while the creatures continued their quiet occupation of his pool. The situation is escalating rapidly, Helen said, reading from her tablet. We now have confirmed sightings on 12 different planets in this system. The Galactic Union is treating this as a Category 3 alien migration event. What does that mean? Keanu asked. It means if we don't find a solution soon, they'll send in the containment fleet. Containment fleet? Military vessels designed to forcibly relocate unwanted alien populations. Keanu looked out at his pool, where the creatures floated peacefully. These beings aren't invaders, they're desperate, That doesn't matter to the Union, Helen replied coldly. Unauthorized settlement is unauthorized settlement. Alex leaned forward. What if we could find them a better place to settle? Somewhere that doesn't interfere with human activities. Like, where? Lisa asked. There are plenty of uninhabited water worlds in this system. Ocean planets with no sentient life. Amy shook her head. I don't think they want just any water. They've specifically chosen locations that humans use for recreation. They're drawn to our pool culture. Pool culture? Jake looked confused. Think about it, Amy continued. They learned about water recreation from our entertainment media. To them, pools aren't just water sources, they're cultural symbols. They want to be part of what they see as human civilization. Keanu stood up and walked to the window. The creatures had awakened and were beginning their evening activities. But tonight was different. They had brought things with them, objects from their dimension that looked like decorations or tools. Chip, scan, the new objects in the pool. Scanning now, Keanu. The objects appear to be living structures, bioarchitectural elements that can modify water chemistry and create underwater habitation spaces. They're building houses in my pool. It appears so. Ryan jumped up from his chair. We need to document this. This could be the first recorded case of interdimensional colonization. This could also be the start of a war, Helen said grimly. The Centauri Empire has already filed a formal complaint. The Zephyrian Federation is threatening to relocate their trade routes. This isn't just a local problem anymore. That evening, Keanu decided to take direct action. If the creatures wanted to communicate through their leader, he would do the same. He waited by the pool until the large creature approached. I need to talk to you, Keanu said firmly. Chip translated, and the creature responded with questioning tones. You can't stay here, Keanu continued. This is causing problems for my people and yours. The creature projected images again, the dying dimension, desperate families, children who needed clean water to survive. Then it showed images of human pools from movies, highlighting the joy and community they represented. Water joy place safe. Haven. Chip translated the creature's response. It's saying that pools represent safety and happiness in human culture, so they believe pools are where they should build their new communities. But these are private pools. They belong to individuals, not communities. The concept of private ownership seemed to confuse the creature. In its dimension, all water was shared. The idea that someone could own water was as foreign as claiming to own air. Explain property rights, Keanu told Chip. After several minutes of translation attempts, the creature made sounds that Chip interpreted as, "Waterkeeper Keanu controls all water planets?" "No, I don't control all the water, I just own this one pool." This led to more confusion. If Keanu didn't control all the water, why was he the only human who had spoken to them? In their society, only leaders communicated with other species. "They think you're Earth's representative for all water-related matters," Alex said, having listened to the exchange. "You're accidentally conducting first contact diplomacy." "I just wanted to swim in peace." The creature made more sounds and its tone seemed urgent. Chip's translation was, "Great water sadness coming, need help now." "What is the great water sadness?" Keanu asked. The creature projected new images, their dimension's water sources completely failing, entire cities being abandoned, millions of their people facing death from toxic conditions. Timeline short 2 moon. Cycles all water gone, came. The translation. 2 months, Amy whispered. They have 2 months before their dimension becomes completely uninhabitable. Keanu stared at the creature, understanding the desperate urgency behind their actions. They weren't just looking for new homes. They were facing extinction. "How many of your people need new homes?" The creature's answer made everyone go silent. Chip translated, 47 million water dwellers seek new swimming grounds. 47 million, Helen said faintly. "This isn't a migration, this is an exodus." Keanu looked around at the faces of his friends and advisors. They all looked as overwhelmed as he felt. But looking back at the creature, he saw something that reminded him why he had always tried to help others, even when it was difficult. Hope. Despite everything, these beings still had hope that humans would help them. "What do you need from us?" Keanu asked the creature. "Safe water places for all. Families learn human pool joy ways. They want to integrate into our society." Alex translated. "They don't just want refuge, they want to become part of human water culture." Keanu rubbed his forehead. "This is way beyond what one person can handle." But as he looked at the creature's hopeful expression, he realized that somehow he had become the key to solving this crisis. The creatures trusted him. The human authorities were looking to him for answers, and he was probably the only person who could prevent this situation from escalating into a galactic conflict. "Chip, get me a connection to the Planetary Council. If we're going to solve this, we're going to need everyone working together." "What are you thinking, Keanu?" Jake asked. "I'm thinking that if these beings want to learn human pool culture, then maybe it's time we figured out how to teach them properly. But first, we need to make sure everyone understands what we're really dealing with here." The creature made soft, grateful sounds and bowed its head. Somehow, Keanu had just agreed to help save an entire species. His quiet retirement was officially over. The Planetary Council meeting was unlike anything Keanu had ever experienced. Representatives from 12 different worlds gathered in the Grand Hall on Aquaterra Prime's capital city, while holographic displays showed the growing crisis across the star system. "The situation is getting worse every day," announced Council President Maria Santos, a sharp-eyed woman who had served 3 terms. "We now have confirmed settlements on 46 different planets. These creatures are spreading faster than we can track them." Keanu sat at the main table, feeling out of place among the politicians and military officers. To his left sat General Paul Kim, head of the System Defense Force, who looked like he wanted to solve the problem with weapons. To his right was Dr. Kevin Walsh, the system's top terraforming expert, who seemed more interested in the creature's technology than their refugee status. Mr. Reeves, President Santos continued, since you're the only human these beings will communicate with, we need your help to understand their intentions. Their intentions are simple, Keanu replied. They're dying and they need our help. But they're taking over our recreational facilities without permission, General Kim argued. Every major resort in the system is reporting alien occupations. Tourism is down 80%. Dr. Walsh leaned forward. From a scientific standpoint, their dimensional phase technology could revolutionize space travel. Perhaps we could negotiate a technology exchange. They don't want to trade technology, Keanu said firmly. They want to save their families. The debate continued for hours, with various representatives suggesting everything from military action to complete surrender of all water facilities. Keanu listened, growing more frustrated by the minute. These people were treating the crisis like a political problem when it was really about survival. Finally, he stood up. With all due respect, you're all missing the point. These beings learned about human culture from our movies and TV shows. They think pools are about community and joy. If we want them to understand our rules, we need to teach them properly. What are you suggesting? President Santos asked. I'm suggesting we show them real human pool culture, not the Hollywood version, but we do it on our terms in controlled conditions. General Kim looked skeptical. You want to negotiate with them? I want to educate them. There's a difference. That night, Keanu returned home to find his situation had changed dramatically. The creatures had not only filled his pool completely, but they had begun expanding it. Using their bioarchitectural technology, they had created underwater tunnels that connected to his neighbor's fountain, the community center pool, and even the ocean itself. Chip, show me the extent of the modifications. The creatures have created a water network spanning approximately 12 square kilometers, Keanu. Your pool is now the central hub of what appears to be an underground city. Keanu walked outside and saw lights glowing beneath his lawn. The creatures had built their habitat under his entire property and beyond. Betty Collins was standing in her backyard, staring at the glowing patterns beneath her rose garden. Keanu, she called out, there are aliens living under my petunias. I'm working on it, Betty. But the truth was, Keanu was impressed despite his frustration. The creatures had built their expansion without damaging any surface structures. Their technology seemed to work with the environment rather than against it. The leader of the creatures approached the pool's edge when it saw Keanu. It had grown larger over the past few days and now had additional bioluminescent patterns that seemed to indicate increased status. We need to talk, Keanu said. Your people are spreading too fast. The human authorities are getting scared. Chip translated, and the creature responded with complex tones that included what sounded like apology and explanation. It says they're not trying to cause problems, Chip interpreted. But their population is growing desperate. More refugees arrive from their dimension every day, and they need space for the families. How many more are coming? The creature's answer made Keanu's heart sink. New swimmers arrive every light. Cycle soon, 5 million need water homes. 5 million refugees are already here, and more coming daily, Chip confirmed. Keanu realized that while he had been attending council meetings, the crisis had accelerated beyond anyone's imagination. The creatures weren't just scouting anymore, they were in full evacuation mode. Show me the human water rules, the creature requested through Chip. Learn proper pool joyways. This gave Keanu an idea. If the creatures wanted to learn human pool culture, he would teach them, but he would also use the lessons to establish boundaries and rules. The next morning, Keanu called Paul Kim and Dr. Walsh to his house. He also invited Ryan Torres and Amy Peterson from Alex's research team. I want to try something, Keanu explained. Instead of fighting the creatures or trying to relocate them, I want to teach them how to coexist with us. How? Paul asked. Pool education. We show them real human pool etiquette, safety rules, and community standards. If they want to be part of our water culture, they need to learn how it actually works. Dr. Walsh looked intrigued. You're talking about cultural integration, rather than separation. Exactly, but integration with clear rules and boundaries. They set up what Keanu called Pool University in his backyard. Using Chip's translation abilities, they began teaching the creatures about human pool customs. The lessons covered everything, from noise levels and lighting restrictions to the concept of scheduled usage times. The creatures were eager students. They learned that human pool parties had specific hours, that lights should be dimmed in residential areas, and that some pools were private while others were public. They even began practicing synchronized swimming routines that were beautiful but quiet. However, not all the creatures were interested in following human rules. A faction led by a large, aggressive individual that the others called Deep Current Swimmer began pushing for more aggressive expansion. This creature believed that humans were weak and that the water dwellers should simply take what they needed. Humans, small numbers, we many. Take all water places, Deep Current Swimmer communicated to Keanu during one lesson. That attitude will get your people killed, Keanu replied bluntly. Humans may be smaller, but we're not helpless. To prove his point, Keanu decided to demonstrate human ingenuity. Working with Paul Kim, he began modifying his pool's systems with new technology, designed specifically to manage the creature population. The first modification was a sonic regulation system that could create uncomfortable frequencies for any creatures that didn't follow the established rules. The second was a chemical balancing system that could make specific areas of the water unsuitable for the creature's bioarchitecture while remaining safe for humans. This is your warning system, Keanu explained to the assembled creatures. Follow the rules we've taught you and the water stays comfortable. Break the rules, and the water becomes unpleasant for you. Most of the creatures accepted this arrangement, but Deep Current Swimmer saw it as a declaration of war. It began rallying its followers, preparing for what it called the Great Water Taking. You cannot control water, we are water, Deep Current Swimmer challenged Keanu directly. Watch me, Keanu replied. That night, Deep Current Swimmer led about 200 creatures in an attack on the municipal water treatment facility. They planned to take control of the city's entire water supply and establish dominance over the human population. But Keanu was ready. Working with Paul Kim's engineering team, he had installed similar sonic and chemical systems throughout the city's water infrastructure. When the rebel creatures tried to establish their bioarchitecture in the treatment facility, they found the water becoming increasingly hostile to their technology. Chip activates citywide water defense protocols. Protocols activated, Keanu. All municipal water sources are now regulated for optimal human use and uncomfortable for unauthorized alien bioarchitecture. The rebel creatures found themselves unable to build their structures in any public water source. Worse, the sonic frequencies made it painful for them to stay in the treated water for extended periods. Deep Current Swimmer retreated to Keanu's pool, where the original leader waited with the majority of the creature population. You poison water against us, Deep Current Swimmer accused. I protected our water from thieves, Keanu replied through Chip. The water belongs to those who follow the rules, both human and water dweller. The original leader made sounds that Chip translated as reproach toward Deep Current Swimmer. Foolish current brings danger to all swimmers. A heated debate broke out among the creatures, with different factions arguing about whether to fight the humans or cooperate with them. Some wanted to return to their dying dimension rather than submit to human rules. Others believed that cooperation was their only hope for survival. Finally, the original leader approached Keanu with what sounded like a formal proposal. Speak water peace terms, Chip translated. Swimmers will follow Keanu rules if humans allow safe water homes. What are you offering? Keanu asked. Knowledge of waterways. Help humans better swimming technology. Service protection of all water places. Doctor. Walsh's eyes lit up. They're offering a partnership. Their technology in exchange for settlement rights. Keanu looked at the hundreds of creatures floating hopefully in his pool. They had come so far from 3 days after the failed attack on the water treatment facility. Keanu woke up to find his pool empty. Not just empty of creatures, completely drained of water. Every drop had vanished overnight, leaving only strange crystalline formations on the bottom that pulsed with faint light. Chip, what happened to the water? Unknown, Keanu. All sensors indicate the water simply ceased to exist at approximately 3:47 a.m. The crystalline structures appear to be some form of dimensional anchor technology. Keanu walked outside and immediately knew something was terribly wrong. His neighbor's fountain was also empty, as was the community center pool visible in the distance. Every body of water within sight had been drained. His phone rang. It was Jake Murphy, and he sounded panicked. "Keanu, we've got a citywide emergency. Every pool, fountain, and water feature in the city is empty, even the decorative ponds at the government buildings." "What about drinking water?" "Taps still work, but anything that's not in a closed system is gone. It's like something sucked all the recreational water right out of our dimension." Dr. Alex Stone arrived an hour later with his entire research team, plus several new scientists from the university. Amy Peterson looked exhausted. She had been monitoring the creature's dimensional activity all night. "This is retaliation," Amy explained, pointing at her readings. "Deep Current Swimmer and the Rebel faction have somehow reversed the dimensional flow. Instead of bringing water from their dimension to ours, they're pulling our water into theirs." "Can they do that?" Keanu asked. "Apparently they can," Ryan Torres said grimly. "And it gets worse. They're not just taking water from this planet. We're getting reports from 17 other worlds in the system. Every recreational water source is being drained." Alex looked up from his equipment. "They're holding our water hostage. This is a declaration of war." Within hours, the situation became a galactic crisis. News broadcasts across 12 star systems showed empty pools and fountains on planet after planet. Tourist economies crashed overnight. Resort worlds that depended on water attractions faced immediate bankruptcy. General Paul Kim arrived at Keanu's house with a full military escort. His expression was grim and determined. "Mr. Reeves, the Galactic Union has authorized military action. We're going to force these creatures to return our water." "That's a mistake," Keanu said firmly. "Violence will only make things worse. They started this war when they stole our water. They're scared and desperate. If you attack them, they'll fight back with everything they have." But the general's orders were clear. The System Defense Force began deploying dimensional disruptor weapons, designed to sever the creature's connection to their home dimension. If the weapons worked, it would trap any creatures currently in human space while cutting off their access to the stolen water. Keanu tried to contact the original leader through the crystalline formations in his empty pool, but there was no response. The friendly faction seemed to have either joined the rebels or been silenced by them. Dr. Kevin Walsh worked frantically with his terraforming team to understand the dimensional technology. "If we can't communicate with them, maybe we can reverse the process ourselves," he suggested. "How long would that take?" President Maria Santos asked during an emergency council session. "Weeks, maybe months. This is technology we barely understand." "We don't have months. The Tourism Council estimates we're losing 1 billion credits per day. Some worlds are threatening to leave the Union entirely." Meanwhile, Tyler Brooks and Sophie Miller, two local teenagers who had been following the story, discovered something the adults had missed. While swimming at the beach, they noticed that ocean water was behaving strangely. It seemed thicker, more responsive to movement, and occasionally showed brief flashes of bioluminescence. "Mr. Reeves," Tyler called Keanu from the beach. "You need to see this." When Keanu arrived at the shore, Sophie showed him what they had found. The ocean isn't empty like the pools, but there's definitely something different about it. Keanu knelt by the water's edge and put his hand in. The water felt normal, but when he moved his fingers, trails of light followed the motion. Chip scanned the ocean water, detecting massive quantities of bioluminescent organisms, Keanu. They appear to be the juvenile form of the creatures from your pool. "Babies?" Amy Peterson, who had followed them to the beach, pulled out her equipment. "Not babies. Eggs. Thousands of them. The creatures aren't just stealing our water. They're using our oceans as nurseries. This changed everything. The rebels weren't just taking water out of spite. They were trying to establish permanent breeding grounds for their species. The drained pools were a distraction, while they seeded the oceans with their offspring." "How many eggs are we talking about?" Keanu asked. Amy's readings made her go pale. Based on the energy signatures, I'd estimate several million, and they're developing fast. Maybe a few weeks until they hatch. Keanu realized the true scope of Deep Current Swimmers' plan. By draining the recreational water sources, the rebels had forced humans to focus on getting their pools back while the real invasion happened in the oceans. Once the eggs hatched, there would be millions of creatures with no loyalty to human rules or cooperation agreements. "We need to contact the original leader," Keanu said. "This isn't just about water anymore. This is about the future of both our species." That night, Keanu tried a desperate plan. Using Chip's most powerful transmitters, he broadcast a message through the crystalline formations in his empty pool, hoping to reach any creatures who still wanted peace. "This is Keanu Reeves, waterkeeper of the first pool. I call for water peace talks between all swimmers. The current path leads to destruction for everyone." For hours there was no response. Then, just before dawn, the crystals began to glow. Water started seeping back into the pool. Not much, just a few inches. But it was enough for the original leader to appear. The creature looked different, smaller, dimmer, and covered with what looked like battle scars. When it spoke, Chip's translation revealed the desperate situation. "Deep Current Swimmer controls all refugee swimmers now. Original leader banished for human friendship. Few still believe in water peace. How many of your people want peace? Maybe 1 million swimmers hide in deep dark waters. Most follow war leader now. Can you help us stop the eggs from hatching?" The creature's response shocked everyone. "Eggs cannot stop already too developed, but can change what young swimmers learn when born." Dr. Walsh leaned forward. "What does that mean?" "Newborn swimmers learn from first water voices they hear. If human friend voices speak first. Young swimmers learn peace, not war." Keanu understood. "You're saying we can influence what the baby creatures learn when they hatch?" "Yes, but must act fast. Hatching begins soon." This gave Keanu an idea that was either brilliant or completely insane. Instead of trying to stop the hatching, they would turn it into an opportunity. If they could be the first voices the baby creatures heard, they could teach them cooperation instead of conquest. "Chip, calculate how much equipment we'd need to broadcast educational messages to every ocean on every affected planet simultaneously." "That would require the cooperation of all human governments in the system, Keanu. Plus massive technological resources. Then we better get started." Keanu turned to the exhausted group of officials, scientists, and military personnel who had gathered around his empty pool. "I have a plan. It's crazy and it's never been tried before, but it might be our only chance to prevent a war." General Kim looked skeptical. "What kind of plan?" "We're going to become teachers to millions of alien babies, all at the same time." "President." Santos stared at him. "That's impossible. 6 months ago, talking to interdimensional aliens was impossible. But here we are." The original leader made hopeful sounds and projected images into the shallow water, scenes of young creatures learning to swim peacefully alongside human children, of mixed communities where both species shared water resources and knowledge. "This is Dream of Peace. Swimmers," Chip translated. "But time very short. War leader plans attack when young ones hatch." "What kind of attack?" The creature's answer made everyone go silent. "All young swimmers plus all adult refugees together take all water on, all planets make humans land dwellers only." "Complete water colonization," Amy whispered. "They're planning to claim every drop of water in the system." Keanu looked at the frightened faces around him, then at the hopeful creature floating in his pool. The next few days would determine whether two species learned to live together or destroyed each other in the greatest water war the galaxy had ever seen. "Chip, get me a direct line to every planetary leader in the system. Operation Baby Pool is about to begin." Operation Baby Pool was the most ambitious undertaking in human history. In just 72 hours, every major planet in the system had to install underwater speakers in their oceans, coordinate translation systems, and prepare educational broadcasts for millions of alien babies who would soon hatch. Keanu stood in the emergency command center that had been set up in his living room. Screens showed oceans from 12 different worlds, all glowing with the same eerie bioluminescence that indicated the eggs were almost ready to hatch. Status report, President Maria Santos called out from the main communication hub. Aquaterra Prime is ready, Dr. Kevin Walsh reported. All coastal speakers are installed and tested. Terra Nova confirms ready, came a voice from another planet. New California is online. One by one, the planets reported their readiness. But there was one major problem. We're still missing the translation protocols for 3 different creature languages, Amy Peterson said, looking stressed. The juveniles might not understand our standard message. That's when the original leader, who had been floating quietly in the shallow water of Keanu's pool, made an offer that surprised everyone. I will teach human voices, proper young swimmer words. Chip translated. Must learn fast hatching begins when 3 suns touch sky. 3 suns touching the sky was how the creatures described the alignment of Aquaterra Prime's 3 moons, which would happen in less than 6 hours. Ryan Torres worked frantically with Chip to learn the juvenile creature language. The original leader was patient but urgent, teaching them not just words but the proper tones and rhythms that would make young creatures feel safe and loved. Remember, the creature emphasized through Chip, young swimmers learn from heart, feelings not just words. Must sound like caring parent voice. Meanwhile, General Paul Kim was dealing with a different problem. Deep Current Swimmer had discovered the human preparations and was mobilizing every adult creature in the system for a massive attack. They're coming out of the dimensional portals, in organized formations, General Kim reported. Military estimates put their numbers at over 2 million adults, plus whatever hatches from the eggs. How long until they reach the major population centers? Keanu asked. 4 hours, maybe 5. Keanu realized they would have to broadcast their educational messages while under attack. The baby creatures would hatch into the middle of a war, between their own species and the humans trying to teach them peace. This is going to be chaos, Jake Murphy said, studying the tactical displays. Then we make it organized chaos, Keanu replied. Chip, activate the emergency broadcast system. It's time. The first transmissions began just as the 3 moons started, their alignment. Across 12 planets, underwater speakers carried carefully crafted messages in the creature's own language. But these weren't commands or threats. They were lullabies, stories, and gentle teachings about cooperation and sharing. Keanu himself took the lead broadcast from his pool, with the original leader floating beside him to help with pronunciation. Hello, young swimmers, Keanu said in the musical tones of the creature language. Welcome to the big water. You are safe here. You are loved here. And you will learn to swim with friends, not enemies. On every planet, humans were broadcasting similar messages. Children like Tyler Brooks and Sophie Miller had volunteered to help, their young voices naturally matching the frequencies that baby creatures found most comforting. At first, nothing seemed to happen. The ocean waters continued to glow and the approaching adult creatures continued their attack formations. But then Amy Peterson noticed something on her sensors. The eggs are responding, she said excitedly. The bioluminescence is changing patterns. They're listening. The first babies began hatching just as Deep Current Swimmers' forces reached the outer edges of human settlements. But instead of joining the attack, the newly hatched creatures seemed confused and lost. They floated near the surface of the oceans, making questioning sounds. Keep broadcasting, Keanu told his team. They need to hear consistent voices. Dr. Nina Rodriguez, who had joined the effort from the terraforming station, added educational content about water conservation and environmental protection. Young swimmers learn to keep water clean and healthy. All swimmers work together to protect the big water for everyone. The effect was remarkable. As more babies hatched and heard the human voices, they began swimming toward the shorelines instead of toward the battle formations. They seemed to be looking for the source of the caring voices they had heard. Deep Current Swimmer realized what was happening and became enraged. Through the dimensional portals, its voice boomed across the oceans in harsh, commanding tones. Young swimmers, come to war, leader. Now. Humans are enemies, not friends. But the baby creatures had already imprinted on the gentle human voices. Deep Current Swimmers. Harsh commands frightened them, and they swam away from the war leader instead of toward it. This created chaos in the creature ranks. Adult creatures who had been ready for battle suddenly found themselves trying to rescue confused babies who were swimming in the wrong direction. The organized attack fell apart as the adults split between following their war leader and protecting their young. Keanu saw the opportunity and took it. Chip, broadcast on all channels, addressed the adult creatures directly. "Adult swimmers," Keanu said, his voice carrying across the oceans of 12 worlds. "Your children are safe with us. They have learned the songs of peace. Come and see how humans and swimmers can live together." The original leader added its own voice to the broadcast, calling to its scattered people, "War brings death to young swimmers. Peace brings safety and new waters for all." What happened next would be remembered as the Great Turning. One by one, adult creatures began breaking away from deep current swimmers' forces. They swam toward the shores where their babies waited, curious to see these humans who spoke in caring voices. The first adult creature to approach a human beach was on Aquaterra, Prime, just a few miles from Keanu's house. A group of local families, including Betty and Frank Collins, had volunteered to be greeters. They waded into the shallow water with translation devices, speaking gently to the frightened creature parents. "Your babies are beautiful," Betty told them through Chip's translation. "They're such good swimmers already." Similar scenes played out across the system. Humans and creatures meeting not as enemies, but as neighbors concerned about the same thing: the safety and future of their children. Deep Current Swimmer made one last desperate attempt to regain control. It attacked the main broadcast station on Terra Nova, trying to silence the human voices. But its own people stopped it. Creatures who had followed the war leader now protected the humans who had shown kindness to their young. The final confrontation happened in Keanu's pool. Deep Current Swimmer materialized in the shallow water, its body dark with rage and desperation. "You poison young minds against their own people," it accused Keanu. "I taught them that different species can be friends," Keanu replied calmly. "Isn't that what you wanted when you first came here, to be part of our water culture? Wanted respect, got control instead. Respect isn't taken, it's earned." The original leader approached Deep Current Swimmer, speaking in rapid, urgent tones. Through Chip, Keanu heard the translation. "Look around, war leader. Young swimmers happy, safe learning. This is what we hoped for. Deep Current." Swimmer looked at the scene around the pool. Human children and newly hatched creatures were playing together in the shallow water, their different forms of communication creating a beautiful harmony. Adult creatures floated peacefully nearby, no longer afraid or angry. Slowly, the war leader's dark coloration faded to the normal translucent blue of its species. Perhaps war leader was wrong, it admitted through Chip. "Everyone was scared," Keanu said. "But fear doesn't have to lead to fighting." 6 months later, Keanu's pool had become something beyond his wildest imagination. The small infinity pool had been expanded into a beautiful lagoon system that served as the prototype for human-creature cooperation centers across the galaxy. The original leader, who had taken the name Harmony Singer, served as the first ambassador between the species. Deep Current Swimmer, now called Calm Current, worked with Dr. Kevin Walsh to develop new terraforming techniques that created perfect habitats for both species. The baby creatures who had hatched during Operation Baby Pool grew up bilingual, speaking both human languages and creature songs. They served as natural translators and became symbols of hope for peaceful coexistence. Keanu still swam his 50 laps every morning, but now he was often joined by young creatures who had learned to love the simple joy of swimming for its own sake. The water was cleaner than ever, thanks to the creatures' natural filtration abilities, and the light shows they created had become a tourist attraction that brought visitors from across the galaxy. "Chip," Keanu said one evening as he floated peacefully in his lagoon, watching the sunset reflect off the water where humans and creatures played together. "Did you ever think we'd end up here when this all started?" "The probability was extremely low, Keanu. But then again, human ingenuity has always been difficult to calculate." Harmony Singer approached the edge of the water where Keanu floated. "Waterkeeper Keanu saved both peoples," it sang in its musical voice. "We all savvy."